So hello, and welcome to the second webinar of this academic year for the Atlantic Fellows for Social and Economic Equity Fellowship Program, which is based at the London School of Economics. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleagues on this call. And this is the second webinar, as I mentioned, and this webinar is very much focused about the application process. So we'll be talking through that, about how you apply, when to apply, and giving some tips about how to strengthen your application and then discussing the selection process before opening up the floor for Q&A. So thank you. So please note that this webinar is being recorded, and barring any technical difficulties, we will be making this available on our website and on our YouTube channel. If you have questions, please use the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of your screen, to put your question there. We'd appreciate it if you could put your name and where you're based when you are typing up your question, and we will do our best to respond to as many questions given the allotted time for the webinar. So I am Professor Armina Ishkanian, and I am the Executive Director of the AFSEE program, and I am joined here with my colleagues Sarah, Tom, and Julia. And we will be leading you through this discussion and switching between presenters. So colleagues, you might just want to wave hello. Thank you. Great. So shall we go to the next slide? So the AFSEE program is now recruiting its 8th cohort. So we as a program have been going since 2016, 2017. And as a program, we are very much working at the intersection between research, education, and practice. Our belief is that inequality is not inevitable, and that a better, more equitable world can be created and is possible. So the program recognizes the challenges of the current period, the status quo, and we also think about robust alternatives to the current global economy. As a program, we're committed to working through collective action, and the work of our program is undergirded by a number of values such as fairness, commitment, curiosity, kindness, and courage. So we hope by the end of the program, which will run for at least 20 years, that we have created a community of fellows who are working individually but also collectively to create a fair, healthier, and more inclusive world. So what we will be discussing is the application which is made to AFSEE via the LSE's Graduate Admissions Systems. And we'll be talking about that in this webinar. And we've provided the link here. That link and the information is also available on our website. So if you haven't visited our website yet, please do so. And we are already accepting applications. The application system is open. But please, please note that we have a very strict deadline, and the deadline for this cohort of applications is on the 11th of January, 2024 at 5 p.m. GMT. So please bear that in mind. It's really important that the date and the time do matter, and we will be unable to accept late applications, unfortunately. So all of this information that I've pointed out to has been posted on our website, as I said before. So please visit our website if you haven't done so. Thank you.
Thank you, Armina. I will take it to the next part of the presentation. So I will begin outlining what we will practically need from you to start your application. Tom will go into detail more on each of these, but I'm going to give a general overview. So in order to complete the application form, you will need to supply the following. You will have to nominate 2 referees. There's information on our website about who this can be, and Tom will go into detail about that as well. But thing to make clear now is that you should really make sure to contact your referees before submitting the application so that they're aware that you have listed them and that they will be contacted through the LSE system to provide the references. You will also need to upload your transcripts for any and all qualifications that you hold and list in the education section of your application. If you're applying for the non-residential track and you do not hold an undergraduate degree, then please upload a document confirming that you do not hold a degree. You will also need to upload a statement of academic purpose. Sarah, my colleague, has created a video which explains what a statement of academic purpose is and provides tips on how to write this. The link to that video will be shared in the Zoom chat and is also can be found on the AFSEE's YouTube channel, so please take a look. You will also need to upload a CV or resume and take necessary steps to prove that you meet LSE's minimum English language requirements. If you need to take a test to do this, please know that you do not have to sit it before applying. However, if you are successful in receiving an offer, you would then need to take the test. We encourage you to take the test as early as possible so that it will ensure that you, in case you do not reach the results that you need, you can take it again. So I hope that the overview is clear, and now I'm going to pass on over to Tom, who will go into further details on each of these.
Hi everyone, I'm glad you could all join us today. My name is Tom and I work in LSE's Graduate Admissions Office. Today I'm going to talk you through how to put together a strong application for the Atlantic Fellows residential and non-residential programs. So here on your screen is an outline of what we'll discuss today. So we'll cover how to write a strong statement of academic purpose. Then I'll explain what a competitive CV looks like. Then I'll also talk about transcripts, which are particularly important for those of you who may be considering applying to the residential program. And then finally, I'll talk about how to ensure your references will be of good quality and work well in your favor. Next slide, please. So let's start with the statement of academic purpose. Some of you already know this as a personal statement, but we at LSE like to refer to this as a statement of academic purpose because we notice that the personal statement may give the wrong idea of what's expected in a strong statement for an application. It's common for many applicants to assume their statement should be filled with many personal stories or anecdotes, but it's crucial that applicants understand that selectors are really looking out for strong evidence that points to academic suitability, and in the case of AFSEE, evidence that your professional experience is relevant and matches AFSEE expectations. There may be personal elements to your statement, but it's important that you always bring it back to why you're suitable for the program. The first thing to consider is to keep your statement between 1,000 and 1,500 words. Try to be concise and focus mainly on your academic interests and any goals you want to achieve through completing the program. Selectors want to see that you have thought carefully about applying to the program, and they want to be convinced that both you and the program are right for each other. So to do this, you need to be very clear and sure about the reasons you're applying for AFSEE. Before or during the process of writing your statement, it can help to quickly jot down 1 or 2 primary reasons you've decided to apply. This can be helpful in reminding you of what should matter as you write your statement. Selectors also want to see that you can engage with details of the program, but especially that you follow the specific guidance for writing your AFSEE statement. I'm referring to the statement guidance you will see on the application form. For applicants to the non-residential track, you'll need to highlight an area of socio-economic inequality that you currently engage in. You should also give concrete and convincing examples of how you've contributed to projects that seek to address inequalities. Make sure you explain the nature of the project you want to undertake during the fellowship and be sure it aligns with at least one of the International Inequalities Institute or the III research themes. These themes can be found on the website, but just to note, there's the wealth, elites and tax justice theme, the city's jobs and economic change theme, the global economies of care theme, the opportunity, mobility, and the intergenerational transmission of inequality theme, and finally the politics of inequality theme, and finally the public economics of inequality theme. So keep these in mind as you prepare your statement. At the end of your statement of academic purpose, you should clearly explain in 2 paragraphs the project that you are planning to undertake as part of the non-residential program. And also finally, remember to explain the goals you want to achieve within 5 years of completing the program. That's very important. We want to know why this program is suited to your career, your professional aspirations. For those interested in the residential track, you should follow the same guidance, but instead of detailing the project you wish to undertake, you should clearly and concisely explain in 1 or 2 paragraphs what MSc dissertation you plan to undertake as part of the requirements for the MSc in Inequalities and Social Science. You should also detail what academic knowledge you would like to gain from the MSc and how this academic knowledge contributes to your future work. Selectors want to see that you can think through academic material in a clear and critical manner, because this is what lecturers would expect you to demonstrate in your essays during the master's program. Finally, make sure to explain your wider research interests and why they make you a suitable candidate for the AFSEE residential program. Now, before I move on to explain what would weaken your statement, I'd like to talk very briefly about a dichotomy between description and explanation in statements. It's very easy to write a purely descriptive statement where you mention things like, I went to this university and I studied this subject. Then I worked for 5 years at this company, and then I received this award for community work. That's saying something, but then also not really saying a lot at all. Explanation in a statement of academic purpose is about elaborating on the significance of professional activities you've done or modules you've studied in relation to the fellowship. So, for example, if you've worked at the UN or a local NGO, don't just mention the role and move on. You should demonstrate 1 or 2 learnings from this experience and why you feel it has prepared you for the fellowship. Or if you feel this role has made you more curious about affecting social change, you can make that clear and explain it as one of the motivations for pursuing the fellowship. Selectors want to see critical reflection backed by evidence of enthusiastic engagement throughout your professional career, and in the case of the residential track, your academic career as well. Okay, now, one way to avoid writing a disappointing statement is to conduct thorough research on the program and read all program pages carefully to identify information about the program structure and courses on offer. You should know that you've read details about the program and modules on offer and can explain why a particular module is of interest to you. Please, please don't make your statement generic. Almost everyone will write about how much they're interested in addressing inequalities, whether that's gender inequality or tax injustice, but you should highlight what makes you and your professional background stand out. And you can do this by giving examples that are unique to you and your work. Now, this is a personal peeve. Please try to not start your statement with a cliche quotation, okay, whether that's from Mahatma Gandhi or Desmond Tutu. I would also recommend that you don't include excessively personal stories about your life unless they're central to your professional work and your motivations for pursuing the program. While selectors don't want to read excessively long statements, they also don't want to read extremely short statements. Selectors want to see that you've put significant effort into writing the statement, so please follow the word count guide. And also, and this is very important, please also make sure that your statements are proofread. If you can ask a trusted friend or family member to help you read through it to ensure that it all makes sense. You should also try to read through your statement multiple times before submitting, just to ensure there aren't any irritating spelling errors or grammatical mistakes in there. Okay, that's all for the statement. So next slide, please. The next thing is CVs. Now, your CV is very important. Alongside the statement, it's what will help you really stand out. So please treat the quality of your CV seriously. As some of you may already know, the AFSEE programs expect suitable candidates to have a minimum of 7 years of professional experience. This means you need to write your CV in a way that clearly captures the length of your professional experience. Don't write long sentences to describe your positions. Please keep your CV concise. Try to use bullet points to describe your role if possible. Now, the CV should ideally be 2 pages maximum. If you can limit to 1, then that's great, right? Anything longer than 2 pages isn't a good look, right? Don't feel you must describe every single aspect of each position in your CV. Remember that the statement offers you an opportunity to elaborate on the nature of your professional experience and its role in preparing you for the fellowship. So don't over-explain in the CV. Ideally, you should aim to tailor the CV to the AFSEE requirements. If you've done 15 different jobs in your life so far, you don't necessarily have to include all of them in the CV. You should identify those that seem the most impactful or relevant to the AFSEE program. Now, moving on to disappointing CVs. One type of disappointing CV is one that includes pictures. Please, no pictures of yourself, okay? Or cats or pets or anything, nothing like that. Pictures can serve as a distraction and are not relevant at all to your application. So please avoid including them in the CVs. Another type of disappointing CV is one that lists positions but doesn't provide dates or time periods. If you don't date your roles, it's going to be very difficult for selectors to confirm the length of your professional experience. So please remember to provide dates. This can be just the month and the year. That's fine. It doesn't need to be super specific. Other aspects of disappointing CVs include disclosing personal characteristics such as marital statement or the number of children you have. This isn't information that would ever be relevant to selectors who are looking only for relevant information pointing to your suitability to the AFSEE program. And lastly, another obvious one, please try not to have spelling errors in your CV. Proofread. Next slide, please. Okay, so moving on to your transcripts and information provided regarding previous study. If you're applying to the residential track of the AFSEE program, please ensure you provide your degree transcripts. This is important for selectors to use in confirming if you meet the academic requirement for the master's component of the fellowship. When uploading your transcripts, please make sure you provide all pages of your transcript to allow selectors to have a comprehensive view of your academic journey. If you don't have previous degrees, you can of course still apply to the AFSEE program, but you may be a best suited candidate for the non-residential program than the residential, okay? If for any reason you do not have a transcript to upload when filling the application form, please just upload a document with a brief note confirming that you don't have any previous degrees and can therefore not provide a transcript. Because in the application portal, if any of you have already been on there, you probably would have seen this already. You cannot submit an application without uploading something in the transcripts tab. So just upload a brief explanation and the selectors will understand. That's fine. So yes, now moving on to references. References, like other aspects of your application, are important. If you're applying to the residential track, you can request 1 academic reference if you wish to, but if you supply 2 professional references, that would still be fine. When selecting referees, please make careful decisions. Your referees must know you well enough to write in considerable detail about your abilities and motivations. If it's an academic referee, they can be an academic tutor or lecturer. They should know about your academic strengths and should be able to speak convincingly about them. If it's a professional reference, or a professional referee rather, it should be someone like a supervisor or a line manager who has worked closely with you and has a good understanding of your professional commitments and goals. Contact your referees much in advance with as much time as possible before the application deadline. Please remember that it is solely your responsibility to ensure that they submit their references before the application deadline. If you apply before the application deadline, but your references are submitted past the deadline, your application will not be released for consideration until your references are received and processed. Please also make sure that your chosen referees have seen your application materials beforehand or understand why you're applying to the AFSEE program. You can send referees your CV and copy of your statement to review, because it can assist them in writing a strong reference for you. Okay, next slide, please. So just to sum up a few points, please do your research on the program before applying. It's important that you understand what each of the fellowship tracks entails, because if you have a poor understanding of each of the programs, it can manifest in your statement, and that's unlikely to work in your favor. So please do the necessary research. Please also make sure you complete all aspects of the application. Be sure to contact referees beforehand so they have enough time to write your references. And as I said before, please note that it's your responsibility to notify and nudge your referees to submit your references as early as possible. Regarding your statements, you should proofread them after you've completed the drafts. Check multiple times that the language, grammar, and punctuation are all of good quality. Keep it simple and concise. Don't add excessive information. With every sentence, ask yourself, is it relevant? Is this relevant? Does it serve a purpose within the statement? There's no application fee, so don't worry about payment if you apply to one AFSEE program as first choice and a non-AFSEE program as your second. But sorry, let me say that again. There's no application fee for applying to either of the AFSEE programs, the residential or the non-residential program. However, if you apply to a non-AFSEE program as your second choice, you will be required to pay an application fee of £80 for the other program. If you feel you don't have enough funds to cover the application fee, that's fine. You can request an application fee waiver. There's a form on the LSE Graduate Admissions website that you'd have to fill in to do so. And just a final note, once you've applied, please make sure you check the graduate applicant portal for information about the progress of your application. You may not get a decision immediately after your application is released for consideration, but please keep checking the progress of your application. And yeah, that's it from me. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Tom. So I want to just quickly run through the application timeline with you. So as we have mentioned, the 11th of January is the date of where the application closes. So this is the most important date that you have to keep in mind at this point. What happens after that is that the selectors will begin the shortlisting process of all the applications. The shortlisted candidates will be notified in March 2024 if they are invited to an interview. Interview will be scheduled in that month, and all the details about the interview will be sent then. Then all the shortlisted candidates who were interviewed will be notified of the final decision in April 2024, and we will announce the cohort of the 2024-25 academic year in June 2024. So that is the overall timeline that will happen from now until the new cohort is announced. So we just want to make sure to leave you with an important point, that it takes a really long time to write a good application, and all the information that you've heard today, make sure to go away and really process it. Look at the website, go and see the frequently asked questions and the selection criteria that is listed on the AFSEE web page. The one thing that you should also note is that even though on the 11th of January the applications close, your referees have until the 18th of January to submit their references. If your referees do not submit their references by the 18th of January, we will not be able to access your application. This is really, really important to note. If your referees do not submit, we will not be able to see and assess your application. So please make sure to contact them. And as Tom said, it is your responsibility to make sure that they are aware of this date and that they do indeed submit a reference before the 18th of January. So now, before we move on to the Q&A, I just wanted to point out a few ways to reach us. If you have any questions or follow-up from this webinar, obviously we will have time for Q&A, but I run weekly drop-in sessions on Tuesday online from 2 to 3 p.m. every week, where you can join me and have and ask me any questions face to face remotely. So please sign up to those if that is something you wish to do. You can also always email us at afsee@lse.ac.uk with any questions, as well as you can contact our AFSEE ambassadors, who are senior fellows, who will be very happy to answer any questions about their experience and maybe offer some further insights into what the fellowship has given them, where they have found themselves after the fellowship. So that is their email address right there. You can also find us on all social medias that are listed there. And the final thing that I would flag is that we have AFSEE and the International Inequalities Institute newsletters, where we provide updates about the application process, about the AFSEE program in general. There's lots of interesting information there, flagged public events that you are welcome to attend, which might help you also understand a bit more about the program, about the III, about the LSE. And that's it from us. I will pass on to Armina now.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Tom, for that. So we've got some questions in the Q&A. So I will hand over as appropriate. So the first question comes from Srinita from India, and the question is, does the reference have to be academic reference? Can a strong reference be helpful? Tom, I believe you already answered that question, but if you wanted to reiterate.
Yes, the reference does not need to be an academic reference. I will say that if you're applying to the residential track, then one academic reference or two, but at least one would be helpful. Remember that you're trying to produce the strongest application possible. So because that has an academic element to it, we really need to see a reference from someone who can speak to your academic ability, or rather that would be very helpful for us during the application process.
Thank you so much. So the second question is, we've got quite a few language questions. So regarding the English language requirement, this question is from Han Yan Yuan. If I went to a university in an English-speaking country, do I still need proof of language abilities? I don't know who wants to take that question, Julia or Tom?
Sure, I can take that question. So this is a bit difficult to answer as a general question, because each country is different. So overall, the UK has a list of countries which officially are considered as English speaking. This will be listed as on the UKVI list, which is also included on the LSE Graduate Admissions website. If you Google LSE Graduate Admissions English language requirements, that will be the quickest way to see if the country that you attended your university is English language is considered English speaking country. If you do not, there is also a part on on the LSE website which includes every single most countries in the world English language requirements and how they compare. Sorry, no, that's a different question. I don't know why I went there. Sorry. Yes, that is the main important one is the UKVI list. So please have a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia. So the next question is from Abdul Malik from Nigeria, and the question is, what is the minimum English requirement and what exams are best used to show this? I think it's the IELTS exams, and I don't want to give a wrong answer, but I wanted to say, yeah, so maybe I won't give an answer in terms of the minimum.
Yeah, I just believe that it's been posted in the a webinar chat, a link to the English language requirements at LSE. And if you click on that, it'll also tell you what tests. So usually the IELTS, but TOEFL, and there are a few others included.
Brilliant. Well. Thank you, Sarah. So, okay. We won't venture there then. Okay. Thank you. So the next question is, I'm going to take the IELTS test in January after the application deadline. Is it possible to send later the IELTS certified? Yes, it is, but we do encourage people to take the test early, just in case you want to take it again. So, it's always good to get that done earlier rather than leaving it later. The next question is, for the residential track, can you speak to how specific and defined should the dissertation proposal be? I understand we only have 1 to 2 paragraphs in the statement of purpose for this. So in terms of this, I think, Tom, maybe I'll hand over to you because, you did talk about the 1,000 to 1,500 limit, and emphasizing being concise. So would you like to take that question?
Yes, of course, no problem. Something to really consider is that if you are applying to the residential track, you are applying because you have quite a clear idea of the dissertation that you want to undertake. Now, I understand 1,500 words is not a lot of space, but I think within 1 or 2 paragraphs, how long's a paragraph? Good question. A few hundred words, then I think you should be able to detail your main aims, objectives, and why your proposed dissertation is suitable for the program. That's really what we would like to see. We really don't need a very long project description where you're setting out every single thing you're going to do across the year, every resource you're going to use, just your main aims, objectives, that a short bit of context and why it's relevant to the AFSEE program.
Thank you so much, Tom. The next question is about the non-residential track and what kind of project that should be implemented in home country. Is it a pure academic study, or could it be a practical activities within a project? And the question is from someone based in Sudan. I would say it's both. And Sarah, I'm going to ask to, kind of expand on that answer. Sarah?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, for the non-residential project, there can have a research element to it where you're conducting focus groups with particular participants, but the aim is that it is about addressing inequalities somehow. So there is a practical element to it as well. So definitely both. It's merging the two together. Often a lot of fellows take a sort of participatory perspective in their work, or sort of an action oriented where they're doing research to influence either practice or policy or whatever it is, because there's so many different levels you can address inequalities. So it should have a little bit of both. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So the next question is, it's quite similar to the question before that Tom answered. What if you don't have a clear research topic you want to research? What I would emphasize is that the process is super competitive. So I would urge applicants to really think about what it is that they want to work on, as explaining the topic you want to research if you intend to do the residential track is very important. So if you don't feel ready to answer that this year, perhaps consider applying another year. But strong applications, strong statements of purpose do include, as Tom mentioned, at least a couple of 100 words on what the topic you want to research. So the next question is, do you have an example of a good example of an application? No, I don't think we can make that available due to privacy and data protection issues. But I would reiterate the advice already given, that if you're looking to advice about how to write a good statement of purpose, to watch the video that Sarah has made. There was a lot of information provided during this webinar in terms of top tips about how to write statements of purpose, how to write a good CV. So please, pay attention to those bits of advice that we are providing. And our website and our YouTube channel has these videos, so you can refer to that. So yeah, we can't make examples available. Question from Juan in the US. if you're not in academia and don't have a CV, will a resume suffice? Yes, it will suffice. I think in Britain, we tend to use the term CV much more commonly, but yes, I think they're almost the same thing. A question from Imran from Bangladesh. Does it have to be an academic CV? If not, no. Okay. Tom, do you have a comment on that? It says, does it have to be an academic CV? If not, then can I use any format, or do you prefer a Europass CV? I don't think we prefer any.
No, there's no preferred format. The only thing that we ask is that it's clear and readable, and we are able to tell that you have the necessary 7 years of experience. But yeah, no preferred format.
Thank you, Tom. The next question is from. It says, I would like to ask if, as an undergraduate student, I'm allowed to apply even though I'll graduate in 2024. Unless you have the minimum 7 years of work experience before you're undertaking your undergraduate degree, then I would urge you to wait until you have that, because that is one of the core requirements of this program.
I would also just mention within that to make sure that people do not apply whilst they're still registered at a different program. So this would, for example, depend if you're graduating in December 2024 from any other degree. You will need to have graduated from any degree you've undertaken by the time that you start the AFSEE program, which is September 2024. Just keeping that in mind.
Thank you. Thank you. Question from Heather in Canada. When referring to using proper grammar spelling, I want to check that you are referring to British English. I don't think that was the point. I think the point is actually whichever spelling you're using, whether it's American or British, that we're not going to look at how you spelled the word. I'm trying to think now, with an S or a Z. Like the word recognize, but I think it's as long as it is spelled correctly. So yes, colleagues? Okay. But that was a good question, Heather. So Rodrigo from Mexico, could reference letters be presented in a language other than English, Spanish, for example? Unfortunately not, because we do have to, I mean, some of us do speak these or read in these other languages, but unfortunately not, it has to be in English.
Would I be able to jump in there?
Yes, please, Tom.
I will say that if the issue here is that the referee does not speak English as a second language, then I would advise they submit their official reference in their chosen language, and also provide a translation. That will suffice. That's completely fine. We're not looking to penalize people because the referee can't speak English.
So Tom, just to clarify, thank you for that. So the referee is not the one responsible for translating it. It's the applicant who should provide the translation. And should that translation be certified? I think that's an important point to clarify.
That's a good question. I will say who does the translation is really up to the applicant and the referee. That's for them to decide. Okay. I will say that at this stage the translation will not have to be certified. Okay. But at the offer stage, if you receive an offer for the program, you will have to provide a notarized translation.
Okay, that's really important. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, the next question is, are transcripts required for the non-residential track? So for the non-residential track, we don't require applicants to have a degree. So as Julia mentioned, you can just upload a page where it requests for your transcript mention. Julia, do you want to say what they should?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So if you do not hold a degree at all, you're still able to apply to the non-residential track. As mentioned earlier, in that case, please write on a separate document, Word document, stating that I do not hold an undergraduate degree, save it as a PDF, and upload it into the section that requires transcripts in the application portal. One thing to note, however, is if you do mention that you have a degree within the section of the application that talks about education, you will then be required to upload those transcripts. So the ability not to upload transcripts only applies if you do not hold a degree at all.
Thank you, Julia. That's a really good clarification. So the next question is prerequisite prior degree or master's study fields needed. I'm not sure I understand that question, whether it's a specific field. So if the question is, are we looking for people with degrees in specific disciplines or fields? That's not the case. We are open to receiving applications from people who hold social science degrees or humanities degrees, but equally we've had people apply who don't hold either. For instance, they'll hold a STEM subject degree, an engineering degree. So we are not, but in terms of the application for the residential track, this will require a degree, and I think, I don't want to give wrong advice. Tom or Julia, do you want to step in? But I think it is based on the country of the applicant, where they're applying from, whether it has to be a bachelor's or master's.
So with regards to the residential track, because you will be also undertaking a master's in inequality and social science, their minimum entry requirements is a 2-1 degree, undergraduate degree from a social science background, but in any discipline within social science. So that is the only requirement from the master's.
Can I jump in and say, during this, so for the selection process, we have a very thorough handbook for interpreting degrees from from around the world, basically. So we will be able to we will judge whether your qualification is appropriate.
Thank you.
According to the criteria that we have.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Julia. So the next question is from Inti. May I clarify how many referees do we really need for the AFSEE application? So you need 2. Now, if you're applying for the residential track, we request that at least one of them be from an academic referee, because that will strengthen your application. So when Tom mentioned at least one, he was mentioning that at least one of those 2 should be from an academic referee. There's a bit more leeway if you're applying for the non-residential track. Question from Elisa. So this is a question, I think, Julie, I'm going to hand this over to you. It's from Elisa. It's about conditional. Is it possible to apply conditional, meaning if someone doesn't have their academic degree by January, but they will have it by March, for example, can they apply conditional? Is this possible on the program?
Tom, you might need to help me out here as well.
I think,
yeah, maybe Tom can take that question.
I think I understand what's being said is that will they receive a conditional offer, an unconditional offer, if the application they submit, they haven't, their results haven't been verified, or they haven't finished their degree by that point. You will not be able to receive a conditional offer until we have certification that you have finished your degree, and evidence of your final grades and your transcript. So that will be an unconditional offer until we receive those things.
It will be a conditional offer.
Conditional.
Okay, sorry, I heard that. Oh,
yeah.
Try not to confuse everyone. That will be a conditional offer until we receive those things.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So this is a question from Maya in Mexico. The academic reference can be from a recent diploma. Yes, that is correct. It was a 7-month course and relevant to the topic and is not a postgraduate diploma. I mean, if this is an academic or someone who taught you, or you are on a course where, you know, they were providing teaching, then I think that is acceptable. Okay. The next question is from Judith in Nigeria. Does the 7 years of professional experience have to be in working on inequalities? Will work in other areas be included in the 7 years of work experience? Well, you can include it, but if you only have 1 year of working on inequalities, this will be a weaker application compared to others who have 7 or plus years of working on inequalities. So what we are looking at is not just, you know, work experience in general, but what work have you done around inequalities, social and economic inequalities, that adds up to at least a minimum of 7 years. So the next question is, so it's a question about, I don't think a program should be penalizing people on their grammar and spelling as long as they're able to communicate well. When we recruit for a role as a hiring manager, I often find allowing for lower English language skills actually get me better and more diverse candidates, which ultimately benefits our work on inequality. So thank you for sharing that thought. And I think there is a lot of merit there. And I can see your point. What I would point out, however, is that in the IELTS exam, these things will be taken into account. So it isn't just LSE that's requiring this, but also furthermore, when you are, if someone is made an offer and does join the program and does the master's degree, there is no guarantee that all of the academics on all of the courses will be as understanding as AFSEE may choose or have the ability to be. For that reason, it is important that that is taken into account. It isn't done to discourage or to exclude people, but it's because we know the requirements that people are going to have to work into and meet. Hi, okay, so another question from Andrea in Costa Rica. I did my master's in the UK. What should I submit as proof of English language?
I would say that the degree that you've received from a master's in the UK will be sufficient proof as long as it was carried out in English. Tom, is that correct?
Yeah, I think it does depend. I would direct you again to the LSE website on English language requirements just to double check.
Okay, thank you. Are there any exceptional circumstances that allow people without an academic degree to apply for the residential track? Should I write in and explain my eligibility and ask if I have a chance, or is an undergraduate degree non-negotiable? My assumption is that it is non-negotiable, but I'll defer to Tom on this one.
Yes, we do have quite strict general regulations at LSE, and that would contravene the sorry, the lights turned off. Contravene the regulations.
Okay, thank you. So an undergraduate degree at minimum is required to apply. Thank you. Question from Phil in Istanbul. In terms of references, if we have worked in academia as a researcher, would a reference from a line manager be considered a professional or an academic reference? Oh, that's a good one. Well, it depends on what position or how they're writing it, right? I mean, in some ways. Tom?
Yes, I will say on the application, you can choose academic, professional, or academic and professional. So you do actually have the space to include that. So I would count that as sufficient.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, question from Mastewa. On the purpose of statement, should we focus only on why we choose AFSEE, or we should include state why we also choose the university? Well, I think, Tom, I see you shaking your head. Go ahead.
Sorry, I get a bit excitable about this one. I think it really depends. I read a lot of applications that tell me that London is a great global metropolitan city. I don't need to know that. or that LSE is situated in this wonderful global hub. That's irrelevant to your application. If there are, for example, certain research projects or activities happening at LSE that are relevant to your application, relevant to what you want to do with the program, then absolutely. To me, that shows that you've really engaged and you want to be here. So I think that would make for a very strong application. But like I said, 1,500 words, that's not a lot. So you're really wasting word count by, telling me that London's brilliant. So I would avoid doing that.
Thank you very much, Tom. And thank you for the question. A good question. So from Nia in the US, in the statement of academic purpose, are you expecting to see a dissertation research question? I would say not necessarily a research question. We acknowledge that a question can change based on reading and doing a lit review. But I think what we want to see is an overall topic, like an area that you want to work on. So a research question is not an absolute must, but I think a topic is what we're looking for. Yes, colleagues? Everyone's shaking their head. Okay, good. According to the non-residential track, this is from El Hadi, what kind of project that should be implemented in home country? Is it I think we've answered this question already. Yes.
Yeah, from someone from Sudan asked the same question.
Yes.
But just to reiterate, it should have elements of both.
Yes, thank you. Question from Maria, or it says Colby from Toronto. Sorry, it says two different names. Can you please elaborate upon the requisite work experience required for the program? Does the 7 years of professional work experience need to be consecutive full-time work? So I will answer this, but I will also refer you to another webinar which we did a month ago, where we spent quite a lot of time talking about the work experience. But I will say briefly, in response to your question, is that it doesn't have to be consecutive, right? It needs to be 7 years in total. So depending on how we add that up, how you present that and how we can calculate that, does not have to be full-time experience. We acknowledge that, some experience might involve unpaid work in a grassroots community setting, but it has to be some form of labor around social and economic inequalities, some form of labor, some form of work taken. So that's hopefully a clear response. Question from Robin. If a strong academic reference has passed on, can one provide his or her evaluation of your work? No. If someone is dead, I'm afraid we cannot accept your evaluation or even their written evaluation of your work, because then, there's no way for, once an offer is made, to kind of follow up and, perhaps that person would have changed their mind. So I'm afraid not. It has to be people who are still with us in this side of the living realm. So question from Ivo from Germany. Is it possible that non-residential fellows audit other modules from LSE, particularly economic courses? Also, is it okay to provide transcripts for just your bachelor's degree for the non-res, even though you have a master's degree? Okay, I will answer the first part, but I'm going to hand over to Tom to answer the second part. So in terms of, if as a residential fellow, yes, you may audit other modules in other departments, as long as you seek and gain the approval of the course convener. So some course conveners will allow anyone at LSE who wishes to audit the course to audit the course. And by auditing the course, it's only auditing the lectures, not the seminars. However, due to space requirements or other issues, some course conveners may not permit auditing, and that's up to them to decide. So if you've asked, gotten the permission, and they've allowed it, you may audit. Now, for your second question about transcripts and what's uploaded, I'm going to hand over to Tom.
Sorry, before you answer, I see that the question was about non-residential fellows auditing other modules.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
Okay.
Non-residential fellows, I think because now we're offering the PG cert, they should be able to audit.
Yes, just
thank you so much, Julie. I missed out a word.
No worries. So yes, we are confirming that this is the case, but please note that non-residential fellows will only be able to audit any classes if they do get that permission remotely. So we have an online learning website called Moodle, where a lot of the lecture recordings are uploaded, or there's space for online discussion. So the likelihood is that our non-residential fellows will be able to audit the classes through that way, but potentially not. There's not always a live Zoom link to a lecture or a seminar. To a lecture. Anyway, I'm going to pass over to Tom now.
Okay, so the program only requires a bachelor's degree. And when it comes to, if you receive an offer, when it comes to processing that offer, we will usually only request the transcript, authorized transcript of the bachelor's degree, unless during the selection process, we have deemed that it is your performance during your master's that makes you qualified for a place on the program. Then we will ask for an authorized master's transcript. I guess my question would be why would you not include the master's information about your master's in the application? Now, so you don't have to. At the end of the day, you don't have to do this. I will say that then, if we look at your CV and see that you have taken a master's degree, but you've chosen not to include information about your master's, then I will be asking, why is this person not including that information? So I would be careful to cater your application accordingly. I'm sorry, that's not a particularly precise response, but I think it would depend on the situation.
Thank you, Tom. So we have another question around transcripts. This is a person who finished university, BA and MA 25 years ago, respectively, 25 years ago. And they're saying, I wouldn't know where to go for an academic reference at this point. Is there an upper age limit for applying for this program? Any suggestions for getting around this if applying? Okay, so there's a few questions in that query. Number one, there is no upper age limit for applying for this program. So that is not an issue. In terms of going for an academic reference, this is, I guess, it might be the question, of the people having passed on, if it's that long ago. Tom, is there, I guess in this instance, we would accept the professional references.
Yes, I would say if 20 years has passed, then hopefully your experience within that time should speak to your suitability to the program more than an academic reference from 20 years ago.
Yeah, 25 years ago. So yeah, so in that instance. Okay, question from Yana, living in Mongolia. Would it please be possible to share a few good examples of good project ideas? Much appreciated. I don't think we could share, but some of our, information about past projects is available on our website. So Sarah, you're nodding your head, so I'm gonna, that's always a sure sign I'm gonna call on you.
No, exactly what you said. If you go to the AFSEE website and do a search, I know that there are stories that we've done when fellows graduate from a cohort. So for example, the previous cohort, where we list the projects and dissertation topics. So you can take a look and get more from that. Yeah, it's in the chat, the examples from cohort 5. So just take a look and it'll give you a sense of the huge breadth of different types of projects.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks for the question. So question from Dorothy. Should a cost estimate or budget be included in your project summary for your statement for the non-residential track? No, we don't require that at this stage. So thank you. And that would probably use up a lot of your word count. So I would not include that actually, because that's not relevant information. Could I add documents after submitting my application or any further explanation? I believe, and I will ask Tom to confirm this, that after the submission deadline, the only other materials we accept are the references from your referees. But every other piece of information that is required such as your CV, such as your statement of purpose, such as your transcripts, must be submitted by the posted deadline. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So question from Abhijit from India. How do I prove that I have been working for much more than 7 years? Research could also use some technology as part of what I want to do. Okay, so there's two questions. Well, I think, we would be looking at your CV, right? And what you put in your statement of purpose. So your CV, your resume should put that information out there. And yes, so that's really important, that you put information that is genuine, and could also use some technology. Yes, you can use technology as part of the research you want to do, of course. Question from Nwabisa from South Africa. Apologies for mispronouncing your name. On the question of finishing your current degree, does it apply to postgraduate studies too? Yes, it most certainly does. Question from Carol. Is it possible to have visibility on the format answers requirements expected from the two referees? So I don't think the LSE reference is based on questions. I think it states generally what kind of areas we want them to talk about, right, Tom?
Yes, that's the case.
Okay.
It's quite yeah, there's not set questions that they're asking the referee, but there is some small amount of guidance there.
Okay, thank you so much. Next question is, do you have a rough percentage of people who have been accepted to the fellowship per continent? Wow, okay, that's I don't have it on the top of my head, but you could look at our website and see where we do have applicants fellows coming from. So, and we may have that information, but I don't have it at hand or on the top of my head right now. So apologies. So the next question is from Sumita from India. I'd like to inquire whether the IELTS test scores from 2020 exam are still acceptable. Additionally, could you please provide information on the duration allowed for submitting IELTS results after the application deadline? So Tom, could you answer that? Because that's a really important question, I think, in terms of, IELTS.
Sorry, Julia, did you want to?
Or Julia?
No,
oh, you're
I mean,
unmuted there.
no, that's fine. From my understanding, it must be less than 2 years old on 1st of October 2024. That is the general guidance on how old the exam can be to be still relevant, and able to act as evidence of your English language proficiency. And in terms of the duration allowed for submitting the IELTS test after your application deadline, there's no firm deadline. However, again, the sooner you submit it, the better. What would likely happen is that if you receive an offer, which would be in around April, then it is really important to submit the IELTS results as soon as possible, because that will ensure you will be the process of getting you registered, enrolled as a full-time student at LSE will be really important. This especially is important if you will require a student visa for the residential track. LSE will only begin the CAS number generation process once you have fulfilled all of your conditions for the offer, which includes the English language requirements. So after you receive your offer, the time starts ticking, and it's really important that you get on top of all of those other documents.
Thank you so much, Julia. The next question is based on, so this is a question about success rate. How many applicants were there last year? There were over 650 applicants, and we have around a 2% acceptance rate because it is a very competitive program, and we get way more applications than we can offer places. So it's 18 places maximum per cohort. So this is why we are spending a lot of time encouraging applicants to really focus on putting together a very strong application to ensure that your application is competitive. Question from Vasundhara. Apologies for the mispronunciation. I have 10+ years of working on issues of gender equality. However, my undergraduate studies was not a degree program, but a 4-year diploma in dance and performance. Would I be eligible for the residential track, or does that disqualify me entirely? Well, it will be challenging to do a master's degree in social sciences, in sociology. I don't want to say no entirely, but Tom, do you want to weigh in on that one?
I mean, I would just echo that point. Like this is a postgraduate program, an academic postgraduate program, and that's intense, and that requires a degree of training, particularly in social science research methods. So you can apply. There is nothing to stop you from applying, but I would not be able to guarantee that would be looked on favorably. If this is the case, then it might be worth considering applying to the non-residential track instead, because that would be far more suited. So I would potentially consider that in case.
Thank you, Tom. The next question is logistical one. Should CV be in a different file or a same file with the statement? I believe it should be a separate file, because that's what the system will ask you to upload. Okay, thank you for nodding in agreement. Okay, what if I don't have a 2-1 bachelor's degree, but do have a master's degree with distinction? Would I still be eligible to apply? I believe the answer is yes.
Absolutely. This was going back to the answer I gave to a question earlier. This would be one of those situations where we would require the master's transcript we would require an authorized master's transcript, because it is the master's degree that meets our requirement. But yes, absolutely, please.
Okay, thank you so much. So question from Imran. I got my master's from Sweden. They do not separately send certificates, but these documents can be verified with a code. Julia, you were typing an answer.
Yes, I was.
Okay, do you want to take that then?
Sure. I believe that should be fine. I'm sure our graduate admissions selectors have worked with these kind of in these kind of situations before, and there is a way to get these documents verified from Sweden. Tom, I'm sure you can just nod to that.
Yes, that's absolutely the case. I do not work on the processing side of things, but this is a well-oiled machine, and we have plenty of offer holders from Sweden. That won't be an issue.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Next question is from Alia. Does having 8 years of experience and around 6 years of inequality in public sector work sit with the requirements? I think, because as I said, we are very competitive. We are looking for applicants that do not just meet the minimum criteria, but exceed, right, in many ways. So I think if you don't meet the minimum criteria on the experience, then consider applying in a year or 2 time. This is a question from Leslie. Can I have 2 references from 2 professional leaders' experience? Well, it depends on if that is a non-residential or residential application. And yeah. For the non-residential track, could we focus on the housing crisis in Toronto, Canada, or would that be too big of an issue? Okay, well, I think we would support you in kind of narrowing it down, but the topic itself is probably a good one, because yeah, it's an issue. Good. I'm just mindful of time, so I'm going through the questions. Will a good, this is a question from Mustawal, will a good grade report from previous degree or master's contribute during the selection, please? Yes, indeed. That is exactly what we're looking for. But, just to clarify, that should include a transcript. It's not just, reported of grade. Okay. Question from Evo again. I'm a little confused about the referee requirements now. I'm tried applying as a non-res on the day the application opened to have an idea of what I would need.
I believe that, Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's there's definitely no need for 2 academic referees for non-res application. If that is on the website, please don't worry, because you do not need to provide 2 academic referees for the non-residential.
Yes, that's correct. I'll look into this. But yes, don't worry about that.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, I did a full-time 3-year diploma program at the undergraduate and have one distinct does a 3rd division online BA degree make me ineligible? I don't think it makes you ineligible. You know, whether it would be a competitive application is another question. Sometimes, you know, there are instances where someone will have a great deal of work experience over many years, and that can compensate for a less than stellar undergraduate degree, but those are only in exceptional circumstances. So I don't think we can, you know, make that as a blanket rule. So I would just, and so take that into consideration. And you may, this applicant, they haven't put their name, but you may wish to put the non-residential track as a backup, where the marks or the overall degree category matters less on the non-residential track. Okay. Thank you, Diana, for thanking us. That's very sweet. I'm working on fundraising investing landscape for underrepresented founders. Is nominating a reference a client I've successfully worked? Well, again, it depends on if you're applying for the non-residential track, or if it's one of your 2 references and you've got an academic reference and then you want to, you know, include a client, then I guess that would go under a professional reference. Question from Susan from Zambia. Would a 2-2 bachelor's and a master's that's not graded still? Okay, so I think just to go back, you know, to say in terms of the master's, to make the application more competitive, we highly recommend completing it to see what marks you have, and then applying, because as Tom mentioned, you know, if you only have a conditional offer, we're not going to be able to make that full offer on AFSEE side for you. So it's best to have completed that and wait another year before applying. Am I correct in that?
That's correct. Yes. It's also, I think I mentioned this before, but you cannot be enrolled on another program at the same time as you are enrolled on an LSE program. That contravenes the like I said, the general regulations. That's not allowed. So the masters will have to be completed by the time that you take up the fellowship if you are successful. As for a 2-2 bachelor's, I'll just repeat what's been said already, and that's fine. But again, it's about competitiveness. So please keep that in mind.
Question from Sabrina. I'm a lawyer and have worked on gender equality for 15 years. Are LLMs accepted as part of the qualification requirement? Yes. We do have a law department at the LSE, so I could confidently say that. Cheche, question from Cheche. For climate activists who has been working on climate change injustices at the grassroots through various projects and with a bachelor's degree in wildlife management, between the residential and non-residential track, which one will suit me best? Sarah, you're...
Oh, I mean, wildlife management, depending
you
on
could go for
go
both.
both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to, at that point, decide which one suits what you want to do, which one speaks to your career, like where you see yourself in 5 years. So you may want to reflect on that. But in terms of just what the degree is, I think it would work because it's management specific. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for the question, Winnie. Mustawell question, if I'm asking, if selected, would it be possible to take mixed courses from other departments in the university? Okay, so just to clarify, for the residential fellows who join, you have core course requirements within sociology, but apart from those, whatever units that you have, which are 1.5 units, then you can take courses in other departments as long as you are given a place and the course convener offers you a place, because even that is sometimes not guaranteed. So yes, if we're talking about the residential track. Question from Anissa. Are individuals with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree eligible to apply for the residential track of the program? Does a reference from a fellowship program, non-degree granting at a university qualify as an academic or professional reference? The fellowship involved academic level coursework. So I guess in a sense, the question about the fellowship would probably, if it's a university program, count as an academic. But one of the things we said in the other video, and I'll reiterate, is that because we are a program that's committed to widening participation, if someone has had other opportunities of doing other fellowship programs, then the question arises of why do you need another fellowship program? Like why are you now applying to AFSEE? So I think that is a question that would be well addressed in the statement of purpose. For instance, if you've had an opportunity at Aspen, or if you've been an Obama fellow, why do you then need to be? So I think that is really important. I think on the fine arts, Tom, I'm going to, I mean, it's not a social science. There is some humanities that are, that touch upon some of those subjects. But Tom, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah. I will say it does depend where the bachelor's is from. I wouldn't be discouraged necessarily. Certainly doesn't disqualify you from consideration. Has been mentioned before, it's about competitiveness as well. So think about whether your background will make you a competitive applicant.
So similar question from Chinedu for someone with a BSc in mathematics with more than 7 years. I think what I'm going to do is, I think these are very specific questions about specific applicants. So I'm going to defer these questions to be sent to or raised individually, because I think, giving blanket responses is really difficult. It will always depend on, the work experience, on the university, on the degree itself specifically. So we don't want to discourage anyone, but we have, I think, made it clear during this presentation, this webinar, that it is a very challenging degree if you choose the residential track. Like all degrees at the LSE, all postgraduate degrees at LSE are very challenging. So going into it is important that you feel confident to be able to write the essays, to keep up with the coursework, to be able to keep up with the lectures and materials. So that is important, and that's why we do emphasize that training. It isn't to be exclusionary, but it is actually to support people and to ensure that they are succeeding. So I think if you've got a very specific question, it's best to send us an email with that rather than me or colleagues trying to answer that in real time. Next question is, I have started the application. There's a section where it says I must submit GRE scores. I don't think we require GRE scores, so I'm really puzzled to hear that. Tom, is that your understanding?
We don't require GRE scores. It might be that if you've chosen a second program, another program for your second choice, it might be that program requires a GIE or a GMAT. So I would look into the entry requirements for that program.
Thank
but
you.
otherwise, no.
Okay. Does it matter where your undergrad is from in terms of Russell Group or Ivy League? No, we don't necessarily we are trying to be inclusive. Leah from South Africa, does a PhD qualify as a professional experience? Ooh, that's an interesting question. In some ways, yes. So I guess, it depends on which track you're applying to, but yeah, I think for that one, I would need to see the statement of purpose to quite understand. Yeah. So I think that is the end of we have about 5 minutes left. And I think we have one slide.
We have just gotten a final question.
We have, okay. What are your guys' favorite part of the MSc? What makes it stand out? Ooh, well, okay, I will tell you that we don't actually teach on the MSc. I mean, we provide a lecture or two, but the MSc is actually taught by the Department of Sociology. And I guess our favorite part is the lectures we give ourselves. No, I'm just kidding. That sounds a bit over the top, pompous. No, yeah, that's a very difficult question to answer.
Can I just answer?
Yeah, go for it.
My favorite part is supervising the master students to
See,
hear
that
about
was a
their
better answer than
dissertations.
this ridiculous answer I gave. So thank you.
Yeah, is hearing about the dissertations and working on the dissertation process with students, because it's fun to see what's happening and the new knowledge that they're bringing into the world about addressing inequalities.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, we've got another question. I finished a nursing undergrad from 15 years ago and only have 2 years community health nursing. Oh, that's a different one. Difficult question. I mean, honestly, I think, again, just to emphasize, look at the video that we did last month. We are very, clear about the criteria for working on social and economic inequalities. So if your work during nursing wasn't focused on that, then it's very difficult for us to kind of make, to make an offer because, and again, why we have this is because we want to curate, we have to, bring together people in a room who are going to be able to have those conversations that are meaningful. So if we have someone with 1 year of experience, with someone with 20 years of experience or 10 years of experience, it changes that dynamic. So it isn't an arbitrary criteria. It really is an important criteria because we're not just selecting, an individual. We are also thinking about who's going to be in that room, because it is about community building. And for that reason, we do have that requirement because we want people to at least have 7 years of experience, which gives you enough understanding and awareness of the challenges. So that is not an arbitrary, the year might be arbitrary in some people's opinion, but we feel that, again, that is a level of experience that is sufficient to have an understanding in order to be able to engage in the conversations. Yes? Thanks. Then we have a question. Is it possible to know the title theme of each of the modules which are part of the actually, I will refer you to the video that we did, but because in the first video, we go through all of the modules in more detail. So instead of rushing through them now, if I may refer you, Imran, to the video that we did a month ago, you'll see what each of the 4 modules covers. Thank you for putting that in the chat. The next question is, so having a PhD does not make you ineligible. In fact, we have fellows who do have PhDs on the program. What we discourage are people who are currently undertaking or pursuing a doctoral degree from applying either for the residential track, which would be, I don't know why you would apply to that, or the non-residential track. So we have had those queries before, and so we do not encourage that because we know as academics of how much work it is to do a doctoral degree. And then we also know, as people working on this program, how much work it is to underdo an AFSEE project. And we do not think those two things are compatible. So we strongly discourage current doctoral students from applying. You're welcome, Imran. So, okay. One more question. Okay, great.
I just looked at the slide, and the last slide is just
a goodbye slide.
So okay. Yeah, so inequality.
That's fine. Just to say, I want to thank everyone for attending. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. You've really asked very, very good questions, and I think it's been helpful to everyone, hopefully, who is on this call and people who may be watching this video once, barring any technical difficulties, is posted on our website and on our social media channels. If you do have questions that you are unable to ask or don't want to ask them in this context, we do have an ability for you to reach out to us. Maybe we can put that information, maybe we can put that slide up, Julia, about how to contact us. We do encourage you to ask these questions. Again, just to say, please do start your application well ahead of time. And particularly don't leave the final submission to the last day, last hour, because there can be issues with the LSE system that won't allow you to upload. There can be, problems at your end with the computer failing, with the internet failing. Please, please, please do start well ahead of time. Don't leave things to the last minute, because we are unable to accept late applications. So it is to your benefit to start well ahead of time. Contact your referees, start working on drafts of your statement of purpose, and make sure that you submit the strongest application that you can. And we are all here, people who've read applications, and I have watched Sarah's video, and I strongly recommend that you watch that video because it gives very good advice about how to write a very good statement of purpose. So strong, yeah, thumbs up on that video.
Yeah. Sarah, Armina, before you say the final goodbyes, just wanted to raise that the LSE will be closed over the winter break, so we will be out of office from the 21st of December until the 2nd of January. We will be putting an automatic response to the AFSEE email, which will kind of direct you to the most important links and any inquiry forms. But please do bear that in mind. So if you do have any questions that you think you would need to be answered, before that period, please do send them on early. And we will be back on the 2nd of January, and we'll get back to you. Just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Julia. That's really important information. So yes, planning is crucial. And please bear in mind that period of the winter break that will intervene between the latter part of December and early January. So I want to thank my colleagues again, Julia, Tom, and Sarah. My colleague Saga, who's not appearing on the screen, but has been expertly, as always, leading the webinar chat and putting in very, very helpful information. Thank you, Saga, for your excellent work as always. And thanks, colleagues, for your support in this call. And to all of the people who attended, thank you again for being with us at this webinar. And please reach out to us, connect with us on our social media channels, and subscribe to our newsletter to receive further information. I sound like a YouTube person. Like and subscribe, please. But I'm not. So on that note, before I descend into comments that I would probably not want recorded, I'm going to say goodbye. Bye, everyone.